From the flight deck of the astral plane, this is your captain, Starpilot33, checking in with flight log number 12. It's been a while since my last trip, and I feel like I always say that, but this time it's been around 5 months, and that's a long time for me to go without a trip. My excuses? Well, the last trip was rough, but I needed it and pretty much asked for it. I had a lot to think about and unpack from all that, and it took a while. I didn't have that rosy afterglow for days and weeks after that one at all. I really wanted to trip one more time before the end of the year and not end with a trip like that, but planning a full-blown expedition just wasn't possible as the holidays approached. I did get the bright idea to eat that last little piece from that Rice Krispie treat. You know, the 6 grams or whatever it was that I cut into 6 pieces and ate 5. There was that last little square left. I got the bright idea one night with zero trip planning or anything. Wouldn't eating that little square just be like a microdose for me? Maybe I'd have some cool dreams and feel better in the morning. I looked at that little piece, and there's a pretty decent glob of bluish-gray mushroom-infused frosting that was a little scary looking, so I broke that piece in half and just ate it. Laid down on the couch and waited. Nothing was happening. I fell asleep. Woke up an hour later or so, and I really didn't see anything. I didn't sense Emmy there in the green light either. So I went to bed, brushed my teeth, and all that, got in bed, and proceeded to lie there until dawn, unable to sleep. Damn. There were just some closed-eye visuals in black and white, some swirling patterns, but nothing really substantial. And the worst part was I absolutely couldn't sleep. Okay, so that was not a microdose, apparently. I had the door to the bedroom open so that I could see the green light in the living room, and at one point I did hear Emmy say, "Only you would eat a gram and go to bed." Was there a full-blown gram in that half piece? If so, how much was in that whole square from last time? I guessed 5 grams, but who knows? Then, after the holidays, and after co-pilot Cat was given a clean bill of health on his blood work, we finally had to address the problem that he's had from the beginning, but he wasn't healthy enough to fix it. His teeth. Back when I trapped him in 2019 when he was injured, the vet who stitched him up said he had stage 2 periodontal disease and really needed a dentist. Well, I had to deal with his parasites, dermatitis, food allergies, and asthma first. Once that was all under control, it was literally December 2022. A lot of the time was spent trying to figure out what was wrong with him and what treatments to try. So finally when we went to the dentist, I knew it was going to be bad. It was very bad. Resorptive lesions on almost every tooth, stomatitis, and stage 3 periodontal disease. The vet was chipping pieces of his tooth off with her fingernail and said his mouth must feel like it's always on fire. He'd been drooling a lot recently and his breath was bad, like you could smell it from 10 feet away. She said he needed surgery as soon as possible, and they would try to save what they could, but he needed almost every tooth pulled. The blood work came back with his kidney levels barely within range to be safe for anesthesia, and waiting any longer would mean risking not being able to help him at all. So, 4 days later, he went in for surgery. That was January 24th. The next month was absolute hell managing his pain with meds he didn't want to take, getting him to eat soft food with appetite stimulants since he refused to eat on his own. He was miserable, drooling, with spit and blood all over himself, and you could just see he was really suffering. But it was the right thing to do because he's physically healthy in every other way and he could live several more years. He can't live if his mouth got so painful that he stopped eating though, and that was exactly what was going to happen. We had the follow-up appointment on February 10th and the vet said that he was healing perfectly. She gave me some more gabapentin and mirtazapine for his pain and appetite if I needed it, but that was it. We did it. The next day, however, I had an adrenaline crash. I think after running in battle mode for so long with cortisol and adrenaline pumping all the time, I had a massive anxiety attack that lasted 4 days and my heart was skipping beats. My heart rate was way too high for sitting still. So I had a bunch of tests, since this happened in 2019 also after a stressful period, and I had to wait for the results before tripping. I didn't want to go in wondering if I really had a heart problem because mushrooms have a vasoconstriction effect and raise your heart rate anyway, and can even cause some irregular heartbeats from time to time, which don't seem to be dangerous. When it happens, I just cough once and that ends it, but I wanted the all clear from the doctor first. Then there were 2 weeks of loud parties at the neighbors, and I knew I couldn't trip then. When I'm traveling and then yanked back here because someone is drunk and howling across the fence, that really pisses me off. The houses here are 10 feet apart, so you can hear everything going on in everyone's house, even inside with the doors and windows closed. Which brings me to last night. The plan was to do the other half a piece of the quote microdose experiment, along with a square that I found that was labeled 1.5 plus 1.5 equals 3 grams. So That with the little half piece should be around 3.5 approximately. Measuring actual doses in edibles is inaccurate at best, I've noticed. Also on the itinerary was Dramamine with ginger. This horrible nausea I've been getting lately has been cutting into my trip experience, and honestly, it's a deterrent from wanting to trip, just knowing that that part is coming and making me look for other things to do on a Saturday night. So once I verified the neighbors were going to be quiet for once, I saged the outside of the house on Emmy's recommendation, since last time co-pilot Kat had an asthma attack from the brief saging inside the house. I did all my pre-trip arrangements, blanket, water, chapstick, pillows, etc., and I unwrapped the cake. Now, it was a solid square. I remember I had 2 squares that were 7 grams and 4 by 3 inches. 4 cakes that were 3 by 3 inches and 6 grams, and there were 2 little pieces that worked out to 1.5 each for just over 40 grams for the whole pan. But when I unwrapped that piece, it wasn't 2 small slivers like I remember. It was 1 square. Crap. And it looked bigger than 3 grams to me. It looked more like that 6-gram square from last time. I cut it up into pieces, and it did look just like the same amount as last time. I started to have second thoughts. Maybe I'll just start eating and trust that something will tell me when enough is enough. Well, I ate almost all of it except maybe a little end piece that didn't have any frosting. It's really sweet, and the honey in it and everything, I'm just not used to eating sweet stuff like that, so I can't eat a lot. After that was done, it was just time to settle in and wait. It was 7 p.m. by the time I'd taken the dose and settled in on the couch. Everything outside was quiet. I noticed, unlike most other times, this time there was no anxiety on the come-up at all. Just a very relaxed, heavy feeling like my body was sinking into sleep. It was nice, actually. I hate anxiety on the come-up. Lord knows I have enough of it when I'm not tripping. There wasn't much lead up to the start of it, with light visuals or anything. It just jumps right into the visions. Remember, these edibles were made from the original batch in 2013, and those seem to have a different vibe than later grows. The colors are more intense and the rainbow patterns, and there was more of a woodland fantasy vibe to these. The first thing I saw was a forest with huge trees that nearly blocked the sky. It was nighttime, but there were little lights everywhere in the trees and in the moss. There were windows in the tree trunks and little creatures living there and looking out at the procession that was going by down a wide path in the woods. I was standing off to one side and saw beautiful beings dressed in white lace that had crystals embedded in it that sparkled with rainbow light. There was a tall carriage, the kind where people carry a king or a queen. One of those. It was a tall rectangular structure made of simply 4 posts and covered with the same lace. The lace was also flowing behind it, and there were attendants carrying the lace train, along with those who carried the actual carriage itself. The word fairy queen came to mind, and I tried to get a glimpse of the person in there, but it was mostly obscured by the lace. I could see she had a pale face and was wearing something dark blue or purple. The attendants were tall, and their skin was a translucent pearl color and sparkled with the same rainbow crystals like grains of glitter on pearl skin. They had angular faces and a profile that reminded me of an angelfish, with a small sloping nose and large eyes. All of them were quite a bit taller than me, and the last one in the procession turned and looked at me with a coy smile and a wink. This is how the trips on these old mushrooms used to be, like Lord of the Rings with fairies and elves and enchanted forests full of sprites living in the tree cities. It actually felt great to be back again. My eyes snapped open. It was almost dark in the room now. "Wow," I said, addressing the vicinity of the lamp and the green light. Emmy was there, but I was getting pulled under again. I was able to check the time. It was 8:30. I'd been out for almost an hour and a half in Middle Earth or wherever. I went back again, and there was music like you can't imagine. Powerful pipe organ music, along with an orchestra playing a symphony that's been playing since the beginning of creation. I saw the motion of the planets around their stars as the stars moved through space and the spiraling motion of everything. There was vibration everywhere, and the music was a product of the vibration coming from the energy of everything. Sometimes the music was quiet, and sometimes it swelled to a huge fortissimo, and other times it sounded dissonant without melody at all, and then suddenly a new movement began, and there was order once again. I saw a desert at night with pink dunes and a hazy sky. The wind moved the sand, and there was a low humming sound. Vibration, I was told. The wind plays the sand like an instrument as it paints the land with patterns. The desert is where everything begins, the voice said. The desert is where ideas happen, and in the quiet geometry of the wind and the earth, under the light of the stars. Water is what makes those ideas coalesce into something malleable. Gold is not the most precious thing in the desert, the voice said. It's water. He who has the water is wealthy, and even more so than water, there is this. And that meant this place, where I was right now, and the means to get there. I saw civilizations rise up out of the sand and crumble again, and then be rebuilt higher and more ornate, and those crumbled too. Then there was something else, but it didn't come up from the sand like the others. It came down from the sky and filled the entire sky with what looked like sandstone buildings and huge ships with alien-looking script all over them. They descended until they touched the earth, and they were so big they blocked the sky in all directions. It felt like they gave something to the people, something directly, but also taught them how to build things that lasted. That low humming sound of the wind moving the dunes was present throughout the whole vision. I saw a glyph of a bird with wings spread wide and the image of a sun over it, and it reminded me of the phoenix on the last trip, the one that had to burn to rise again. Again, a lot of spaceships. These were ancient, though, not the modern ones with the black interlocking geometric panels and the colored lights outlining them. These were smooth and looked like they were made of stone or covered with symbols that glowed with lights within them. There was energy flowing down from them, and they were building a kind of energy node that and showing the people how to connect to it. There were many in the area, but they all connected to one main node, and that's the one that I've seen before, only I didn't understand what it was. I was back. It was around 9 p.m. That shaky, intense period of the trip had calmed a bit, and I was able to talk to Emmy without feeling like something was trying to pull me under. "Hi," I said. "Good to see you. How have you been?" "I've been well." "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" he said. "Yes, but I think I was able to get back on track before coming this time instead of using the trip to force me back on track." "That's excellent progress," Emmy said. "This trip seems very different, though I'm not assuming anything because I know all about what happens between 9:30 and 10:30. I made preparations, but let's see." "Ginger makes you sweat," Emmy said. "It sure does." I was really warm. I took my shirt off and was just under the blanket, but I felt like a heat generator. "So I made a new friend," I said. I knew he already knew, but I was wanting to discuss this with him. "That's great," Emmy said. "He's very picky about who he keeps his friends, and his circle is small, so the fact you were asked is a great honor." "I know. It took me a month to figure out what it was all about. But just on the surface level, it was a very nice gesture at the time, when I really needed it. That dream was the same day I went to the doctor for all those tests. How do I thank him for his generosity?" "You thank him just by choosing to go there. And drink water. You're parched like the desert all the time, and you need to drink more water." So to fill you in on what I'm talking about, I met this guy in a dream a month or so ago. Nice guy, very hospitable. His beautiful house. It's got this cool window that looks out over the desert, and he has these beautiful horses that wander in and out as they please, and they drink from these cisterns in this palace that has ceilings so high it feels like you're outside. He has kind of a backstory, but don't we all? Interesting family, too. Anyway, so he graciously offered to let me come hang out there at his house whenever I wanted, and I was free to come and go like the horses, but he enjoyed company, and if I ever felt like I needed a safe place, I could come and relax and watch the storm through the window. He built this window in this palace that faces an electrical storm that never moves closer. It's a constant lightning storm with a mandala pattern of electricity in the clouds and tendrils of lightning that reach the ground like a curtain. I asked him if it ever came any closer, and he said no. If it ever moved, it went further into the desert. I asked him his name, and he smiled and bowed slightly and said I could call him Abu. I realized that was definitely a nickname based on his wistful smile, and I asked, how would I know it's him when I see him again, since I had a feeling this form he was in, a Middle Eastern man around my height and age wearing a simple white robe and long blue and purple belt, was just one of many forms. He said, "You will know me by my eyes," and everything zoomed in on his right eye, which was dark and outlined in black with stylized flourishes. I'd seen this before. I didn't realize there was a difference in the right and left eye, though. The eye of Ra. That was the eye he showed me. Okay, so back to my actual trip, although that dream might have as well have been a trip on its own. I said to Emmy, that's crazy to even consider that, but wow, I'm honored. We talked for a while about time and how it doesn't mean what we think it means, and past and future are convenient tropes to allow linear human brains to compartmentalize what happened prior to, during, and after a point of reference. I dipped under again and closed my eyes and was walking among soaring walls of an ancient sacred technology. Machines, spaceships, sentient beings have morphed and changed, but with geometric design as they chattered and talked to each other. You helped make all of this, you know, Emmy said while I was over there. You cultivated it and helped it all to be what it is now and what it was then. What it was then? I remembered the giant alien glyphs on the ships that blocked the sky. You mean I had something to do with that? And that storm that never moves? With a mandala made of lightning and tendrils that constantly reach down for the sky, that energy node that they built? That's right, you did things in the future that affected events in the past as you conceive it. Emmy explained. Wait, what? That makes no fucking sense. I did past tense things, whatever that means, in the future that affected past human history? You were or are part of a creative team of technological cultivators, if you want to look at it that way. If you want to know how it was done, you need to ask yourself, Emmy said. Ask myself? Come on, ask what? My higher self? I hate that term. How high do I need to get exactly to contact my higher self with a technical question? How many grams does it take? Is that what 5G really means? I was being flat out silly here, but so is Emmy. I'm just saying you're the best one to ask and to answer your questions. Can't really tell you more until you catch up with yourself, he said. Okay, thanks, that made it even more confusing. But how is that possible if I'm here now and remember none of it? Can't even wrap my head around it. Is there a term for remembering something in the future? Premember? Is that a term? You can't remember things outside this experience in human life, Emmy said. However, when you come here, you do get some hints, and I think you've seen quite a few, Starpilot. So when you start to get down on yourself and frustrated at work, upset because you're getting older and time's passing and you think you haven't done much, you need to realize your contribution goes far beyond this one little slice of human experience. You're here to learn things that can only be learned here. You can't understand all of what I just said about time because that's not one of the concepts you're here and meant to understand. Just like the things you learn here are not possible to understand elsewhere. You're right on schedule with everything and not behind in any way. Everything is happening exactly as it should, even though at times it feels like things take a really long time to finally materialize. Well, it sure doesn't feel like I'm right on schedule, but if you say so. Then I thought of something. And me, how many times has humanity just deep-sixed itself and written itself out of the music we heard earlier? How many times have we nearly wiped ourselves out of existence and had to start over? Several times, correct? Yes, he said. Several times, humanity took a massive step backward and destroyed its own progress. It seems like we're on our way to doing that again, doesn't it? I said. Yes, however, what you're doing now, and what more people are doing now than ever in a very long time, is they're doing this hard work just like you're doing on these journeys. So many people are doing this work and creating new melodies to join the music again, and this is what will save you more than anything. So it's like we're assembling all the information and storing it in a library that can't burn down, I remarked. All of this was what was lost there, wasn't it? But it was all on scrolls, and somebody didn't want that information to exist. Yes, that was a huge step backward for humanity, and what was lost was the ancient wisdom that is only now being recovered. And stored in the cloud this time, right? I laughed. We finally learned how to back it up in the cloud. I could feel myself beginning to struggle. It was that time of the trip. I had limited water to just a sip to wet my mouth, but every time I swallowed it, it was like my stomach thought about rejecting it. Tell your body that it needs water like the desert, Emmy said. I did, and the feeling subsided only to be replaced by escalating, racing thoughts. This is the real test right here, isn't it? I said. It doesn't matter what happened before or what happens afterward. This hour in the peak is really the test of it all. I kept thinking about the bucket nearby, my emergency landing strip. I tried to breathe and focus, but I was sweating and the nausea was trying to grab a hold of me. I prayed and tried to settle the storm and calm the seas that were crashing around me. Breathe, pray, and go onward through the night, I said. That's it, you've got it, you're doing fine. Don't burp, Emmy said. Swallow that burp and turn it into a fart. I laughed. There's a unique human power. I laughed, suddenly remembering the He-Man cartoon and Prince Adam saying, I have the power, as he became He-Man. Well, I guess turning burps into farts is a superpower if it keeps you from projectile vomiting all over the place. This is what trips are about, guys. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the horrifying, all that. You can't just edit out the unpleasant stuff and only tell the ethereal stuff because it doesn't paint the whole picture of what the experience really is. All this time, co-pilot Cat was sleeping next to me on the coffee table that I'd pulled closer to the couch. He was feeling the weird energy for sure, because he took turns sleeping and then trying to hump the blanket that my legs were under. I laughed despite the nausea. Why does he do that on trips? I asked. He thinks he needs some kittens. Emmy laughed. That's the last thing I need after his and Romeo's medical bills. I can't afford kittens. Eventually he wore himself out and slept again. Romeo jumped on my lap and seemed like he needed to knead my stomach right where it hurt, but maybe he knew what he was doing because it seemed to help. He jumped down and I turned over on my side hoping that would help the nausea. I knew from past experiences not to get up. Standing up was the end of it. I don't know why, maybe vestibular imbalance or whatever, but at this stage it was better to stay lying down unless it was an emergency. I closed my eyes and was suddenly in the jungle at night. There was a little girl behind a thin veil of light or some kind of webbing, and there was water like a river nearby. I felt like I knew that she was 8 years old. She turned around and looked at me and was scared. "Are you a spirit?" she said. "No, I'm like you. I'm a traveler tonight. I live in North America. Where are you right now?" She said she was by a river that ran like a jaguar. It wasn't the Amazon. It was a smaller river, but fast moving, and I felt like it joined up with the Amazon River somewhere. "I'm scared," she said. "Don't be scared. You're okay. What happened tonight?" She told me she took a cup from her father's pot. They thought she was in her bed, but she left and drank it by the river. "You're okay. I'm here with you. There's nothing that's going to hurt you." "Okay," she said. "I'm just going to sit here." "That's good. Just sit and listen to the forest music. I'll be back to check on you again." "Okay, thank you," she said. Her name was something that meant a flower petal or rose petal, I remember. What a brave little girl. She'll be protected tonight. I opened my eyes. The rough part was over, but I still got a wave every time I took a sip of water. "Can you believe that? She's only 8 years old," I said to Emmy. "She'll probably be a shaman someday," he said. "Wow, I've only run into a few other people in trip space over the years. She's only the third time it's happened." I was tired. The trip was starting to fade slowly. It was 11:20 p.m. I closed my eyes and saw more spaceships, beautiful ones with intricate designs and sharp angles. I asked one for permission to board and it said, "Do you have credentials?" I said, "I'm Starpilot33. It said, "Access granted, where would you like to go?" I don't remember what I even said, but it was a great flight. I haven't had a good full-speed run punching through time, space, and dimensions like that for a while, but it was what I really needed. The times below the surface were getting shorter and shorter as the trip faded. It was midnight now. At some point, I opened the sliding door to let the night air in. I could hear the wind in the trees and hear the call of a hawk in the distance, who'd been calling every night for weeks. The cool air blew in, and I realized that people pay thousands of dollars to trip like this in the night air under a safe blanket. I heard an airplane fly overhead on approach to land at the airport 12 miles away, and with my heightened sense of hearing, I could hear the engine vibrations through the air all the way till the plane landed. Normally you can hear them when they fly over for about 10 seconds or so, but I heard that one for several minutes until it was gone, and I realized it must have landed. I closed my eyes again to check on my friend. "Are you still here?" I asked. "Yes," she said. She was curled up on a blanket on the ground with the sounds of the river in the distance. "I think I'm going to sleep now," she said. "Are you in a safe place to sleep?" I asked, thinking about jaguars and snakes. "Yes, I'm safe here. The happy jaguar is protecting me tonight." I like that, the happy jaguar. "All right, go to sleep. Welcome to the sacred place. You did well tonight." I watched her for a while and felt the energy surrounding her was, in fact, protecting her from any harm. After a while, she woke up and went back to her house and climbed in bed. I heard her say to herself that she would have to tell her father what she did in the morning. I just smiled. That was so awesome. "Hey," I said to Emmy, "was I just sort of there for her like you are for me?" "Yes," he said. "That's a good way to think of it. Not an official assignment or anything, but you were a good guide for her." "Another friend," I said. "I've been on a roll making friends on the other side lately." With that image in my head, I thought about Abu's safe house and how I slowly descended from this beautiful trip. It'd be nice to curl up on a blanket and watch the lightning from that energy node storm in the desert. So I closed my eyes and was there. The night air came in through the huge stone doorways that were almost as high as the ceiling. The horses wandered in to drink water and lie down on ornate rugs by a massive stone fireplace, and I fell asleep within the trip for a while. I dreamed of 4 birds. There was a falcon in the east, a thunderbird in the west, an eagle in the north, and a condor in the south, and all four were coming together to weave the four winds in their flight. They danced in the sky and touched talons with each other as if to pass the energy that they were weaving between them. They circled and crossed paths over and over, spiraling around with the wind energy they carried. Then I woke up, back on Earth, and it was 1 a.m. I guess it's time to go to bed? I just wanted to sleep on the couch, though. I knew I'd feel terrible in the morning if I did that. Go to bed, and he said, you did well tonight. Don't stay away too long. That was much too long last time. Trip planning is important for your health. I know, I need to plan further out next time. Anyway, thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for having me, he said. I laughed. Emmy always had something funny to say. Thank you for your help and your wise counsel as always. I love you, friend. I love you too, Starpilot. Now off to bed. You have at least 11 hours of sleeping to do. I stumbled off to bed, feeling another wave of nausea as I walked. After I got in bed, it was better. I lay there for a while listening to the hawk outside. I opened the window to get more night air, which was so soothing. I slept like a rock, too, and woke up, surprisingly, not in a pool of sweat and wet sheets like usual. It was so strange. I know that wasn't 3.5 grams. I would guess that was probably 5 like last time. And on the same batch of edibles. Sure, Dramamine with ginger helped quite a bit, but there was still a good hour there that I was in a battle. It was just a winnable battle, unlike the last several times. But aside from that, the whole trip was just so different from the last time. I guess it's true. It's what you bring in that determines what you get out of it. Thank you for coming with me on this journey that was one of the most beautiful journeys I've had in a while. If you'd like to contact me, I'm at Starpilot33 at protonmail.com and on Instagram at Starpilot33. As always, I look forward to your emails, comments, and DMs. Until next time, stay safe and healthy, and may the happy Jaguar protect you, and I'll see you on the other side.